magumu sana katika nchi. Asante sana Mr. Ruto. Kindly lead us.
Thank you so much, MC. We are going to bow down for a word of prayer. Let's believe and pray. Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we thank you. We worship your name, dear Father, because of this great morning you have given us. Lord, we thank you, Lord, for your love and mercies. Thank you for enabling us, my dear Father, to be alive this morning, Jehovah. We thank you for this day you have given us. We thank you that you have a good plan and purpose for our being here today. We thank you, my dear Father, for this activity ahead of us, the launch of this National Baseline Survey. Lord, my dear Father, we pray that you're going to guide us, my dear Father, throughout all these, the discussions, the deliberations, the presentations. My dear Father, we pray that you're going to guide us and be with us from the start of it all, dear God. Even those who are streaming in online, my dear Father, we pray that you're going to be with them, that we shall follow the whole presentation, and at the end of it all, my dear Father, we shall give you praise and honor because you will have done it for us. As an authority, my dear Father, Lord, we ask for your leadership and your guidance. We thank you, my dear Father, for enabling us, my dear Father, to come this far. Lord, we pray that you may continue guiding us and leading us. We remember our guests who have come this morning. We pray for them that, my dear Father, in the discussions, my dear God, you are going to guide them. You are going to lead them, that we shall work together, even as an authority with our stakeholders, my dear Father, those who have come with us, our chief guest, CAS, my dear Father, Mr. Karanja, we thank you because you're going to be with us all. You're going to care for us. May you bless our day. May you guide us. Start with us and end with us, for we pray this trusting and believing in Jesus' name. Amen.
Media team, if you can help us with the national anthem. Please let us all stand up for the national anthem. Media team, they're waiting upon you. Thank you very much. Mnaweza keti chini. You can sit down. Welcome to the commemoration of the World Anti-Counterfeit Authority. And today we are going to launch the National Baseline Survey in a short while. So our chief guest, Mr. Lawrence Karanja, and all invited guests, karibuni sana to this particular day. At this moment, this juncture, I'm going to invite the Executive Director, Anti-Counterfeit Authority, Mr. Elema Halake, to come and invite the guests.
The chief guest, Chief Administrative Secretary, Industry, Trade and Enterprise Development, the Chair of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority Board, Madam Flora, the Director of TIMEA, Mr. Farah, the CEO for the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and Director of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, Madam Phyllis Wakiaga, Mr. Wanyama Musiambo, who is the face of the multi-agency against illicit trade, invited guests, esteemed staff members of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, good morning. I wish to take this opportunity to welcome our chief guest, Mr. Karanja, who has been, since his arrival at the ministry, has been very, very supportive to the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. And I want to recall that Mr. Karanja, on your appointment, you recall you attended the Judges and Magistrate Conference we had in Voi. That was your first exposure with us at the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. We want to welcome you most sincerely on this very, very important day. This day is a very important day because we are marking globally during this month the World Anti-Counterfeit Day. The World Anti-Counterfeit Day is an important event every year of our calendar, and we join the world and the rest of the countries to drum up the support and generally take the opportunity to sensitize the public on the importance of protecting and promoting intellectual property rights. So therefore, in a big way, is a day of innovators, is a day of manufacturers, is a day of consumers, because we get to know what is happening in terms of innovation and how we can keep ourselves safe. So this day makes it so important that we relate with it. And for the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, which is spearheading and which is on behalf of the government of Kenya leading in this event, we really want to appreciate the support we've continued to get from government through the ministry, the cabinet secretary, and our PS, Mr. Weru, who is ably also represented today. Allow me also to mention, today we will be having a historic event in the making today here, because we'll be launching an important research study. This study is what we are calling the survey to determine the extent and levels of counterfeiting and illicit trade. This study ought to have been done long time ago. However, it has not been able to be done in the last 10 years of existence of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. However, with the support of our development partner, TIMEA, which is representing the development partner who supported this survey, we've been able to come to conclude this research study. And again, it is a historic moment because we will be launching this. Bwana CAS, the third important event we are going to celebrate today is the existence of 10 years of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. We are exactly 10 years since this agency, since this authority was established. And we can tell you that we've come a long way from as few as 10 staff to 170 plus now. So we've seen ourselves grow over the years, both in terms of personnel, in terms of our establishment, and in terms of our capacities generally. I will not fail to mention the support we've continued to get from the board of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. And allow me to mention and recognize the presence of a representative of the board of directors who are here. Bwana Nguyo, kindly if you may stand and wave. Bwana Nguyo represents the managing director of KEBS and is also on our board. Thank you very much, Bwana Nguyo. Madam Ann, who is representing the Commissioner General of the Kenya Revenue Authority, she's waving there. Please, let's put our hands for her and Bwana Nguyo. These are just the representative of the board of directors, besides Madam Phyllis, of course, who will have her time to speak. So these are the representative and the people who drive the agenda at the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, collaboratively together with able members of management and staff. On that note, I want to now take this opportunity on behalf of the multi-agency against illicit trade to invite the representative of the Commissioner General, Kenya Revenue Authority, Madam Ann, to come and make a statement on behalf of Mr. Mburu. Let me just mention that Mr. Mburu was the person who was directly working and supporting Bwana Wanyama Musiambo, who was our chairman, who, of course, officially was appointed by the president to lead in this effort. And I have a lot of fond memories of Bwana Mburu, who is not here today, and I know how we began and how it all began. I'm sure he will be able to tell that himself through Madam Ann. But what we want to confirm is that we've come a long way. Since the establishment of the multi-agency, we've made a lot of strides and a lot of achievements. And very important today, the launch of the baseline study we are going to do is actually culmination of shaping the agenda for multi-agency going forward. On that note, Madam Ann, please welcome and address us on behalf of the multi-agency against illicit trade. Kindly, let's put our hand for Madam Ann. Thank you very much, Madam Ann. Welcome.
Our chief guest, CAS, Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, Mr. Lawrence Kalanja, Deputy Head of Public Service Coordination of Multi-Agency Enforcement Team on Illicit Trade, Mr. Wanyama Musiambo, the Chair of Board of Directors Anti-Counterfeit Authority, Ms. Flora Mutai, Executive Director Anti-Counterfeit Authority, Mr. Elema Halake, County Director, Trademark East Africa, Ahmed Fala, representatives of government agencies and private sector, viewers online platforms, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to address you today, and more so to focus on the gains of the multi-agency enforcement team against illicit trade, which I deputized Mr. Wanyama Musiambo when we started. I share the perspective on behalf of government agencies in the multi-agency enforcement team, whose head was appointed by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, to coordinate government efforts in the fight against illicit trade. The team is drawn from various law enforcement institutions, including the Executive Office of the President, Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, Kenya Revenue Authority, Kenya Bureau of Standards, Anti-Counterfeit Authority, National Intelligence Service, and the Department of Public Health, among others. Through coordination, we changed the enforcement operation structures, leveling the existing silo structures, with coordination happening right from the Executive Office of the Presidency. This shows the importance and commitment at senior level of government to tackle the criminality. Multi-agency coordination changed the whole enforcement landscape. All law enforcement and government agencies involved pulled together in terms of human resources with very low financial commitments. We explored new ways of working together, pooling resources, knowledge and expertise in delivering the results. Ladies and gentlemen, from our efforts, I can say we have a good story to tell. We have seen effective coordination in investigation and in enforcement of illicit crime, resulting in several large successes. Since mid-2018, we have destroyed illicit traded goods worth Kenya shilling 2.8 billion and seized goods worth 13.5 billion. The first destruction under the multi-agency efforts was witnessed by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya at the East Africa Portage Cement grounds in Athi River, Machakos County. We will continue with these efforts across the country until we wipe the fires out. Ladies and gentlemen, from our experience, we have found that criminals involved in illicit trade are directly or indirectly linked to crimes, including international organized crime. They use the huge profits to fund other criminal activities such as terrorism, money laundering, drug trafficking, and robbery. It is a shame that even during COVID-19, some of these criminals have been involved in selling counterfeit sanitizers, face masks, testing kits, and so forth. This is public interest issue. If left to grow, it will reach an uncontrollable level that all the tremendous health issues posed will be witnessed. Once again, I'm extremely pleased to see results of the efforts that led to development and launch of National Action Plan to combat illicit trade. The plan had in place outlined the need for development of a national baseline survey on the extent of counterfeiting and illicit trade, which I'm happy we are launching today. I believe these findings will be at the heart of our strategic decision-making while tackling illicit trade. I believe it gives us the insights to inform our decisions and actions and improve our whole approach in this war. As I conclude, I want to reaffirm that Kenya Revenue Authority is at the heart of fighting illicit trade in this country. We have revamped our operations through enhanced market surveillance, intelligence gathering, and border control countrywide. We have put in place regional electronic cargo tracking system on export and transit goods, and excisable goods management system to monitor production and track illicit products to ensure no entry of any illicit items that are prohibited by the law. Lastly, to my colleagues in the multi-agency enforcement team, we now have a roadmap to implement the National Action Plan to combat illicit trade in Kenya. As law enforcement agencies, our main priority is working together as a whole government. We welcome the private sector and the whole Kenyan society to work with us as a whole Kenya in eradicating criminal networks. Asanteni sana, and together we shall win this war. Stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Ann, speaking on behalf of the Commissioner General, KRA, Mr. Mburu. On that note now, allow me to call upon the Director from Timea, Mr. Farah, to address us. Bwana Farah, please welcome. Let's put our hands for Mr. Farah. Thank you.
Chief Administrative Secretary Bwana Karanja, Deputy Head of Public Service Bwana Musambo, ACA Board of Directors and Management present, other government officials, the media, all protocols observed. In 2018, Trademark East Africa and the Anti-Counterfeit Authority signed a financing agreement that will provide the framework of cooperation in conducting a survey to measure the magnitude, level, and prevalence of illicit trade in Kenya, development of a national illicit trade observatory that will emanate from the study and provide a platform to monitor illicit trade in the country, design and development of an anti-counterfeit information management system, and strengthening of ACA's ICT infrastructure. Today, we're here to celebrate a remarkable achievement, that is the launch of the National Baseline Survey and the establishment of a National Illicit Trade Observatory. This survey has been made possible by funding provided by our partner, DFID, at a total cost of 24 million Kenya shillings. This funding is part of Kenya shillings 156 million that has been invested in digitization efforts at ACA to fight illicit trade in Kenya. We congratulate and acknowledge ACA in realizing this incredible feat. However, we do realize the fight against illicit trade is far from over, given the increase in national total size of illicit trade from Kenya shillings 726 billion in 2017 to Kenya shillings 826 billion in 2018. As an institution that believes enhancing trade leads to economic growth, poverty alleviation, and increased prosperity, we noted that illicit trade has contributed to farm sales losses of about 17 billion in 2016 to 7.2 billion in 2018. Investment opportunity losses of 4.3 billion in 2016 and 10.6 billion in 2018. And government revenue loss of 97 billion in 2017 and 98 billion in 2018. It is worthy pointing out that establishment of the National Illicit Trade Observatory was done in conjunction with the various law enforcement agencies which are part of the multi-agency team against illicit trade, which the Deputy Head of Public Service, Mr. Wanyama Musiambo, leads. It is our hope that the National Illicit Trade Observatory will provide a platform for multi-agency team to report seized goods and action taken against illicit trade offenders, monitor and track the level of illicit trade in the country, provide a mechanism for developing policies that will advance the fight against illicit trade, and development of improved and targeted consumer awareness programs across the country based on Seizure data. At Trademark East Africa, we hope that similar interventions such as this can also be replicated with other counterpart institutions in the region, such that the fight against illicit trade is done collaboratively, tackled from a regional point of view. We anticipate that once we finalize our digitization efforts at ACA's operations and services, we shall have a further enhanced the fight against illicit trade. I once again congratulate ACA for this milestone achieved. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Director Timea Buanafara, for those remarks. I wish to announce and recognize the presence of Honorable Kanini Kega, who is the Chair of Industry, Trade and Cooperatives from Parliament. Can we be able to put our hand for the Honorable Member? Thank you so much, sir, for making time and for being here today. On that note, I allow the MC to proceed with the program.
Thank you, our Executive Director, Mr. Elema Halake. We are about to get into another session where we are going to now get the report in its fullness. This report was conducted between October of last year and February of this year, so it is our latest report, and it is very instrumental for the government and all Kenyans and the business world. The report was prepared by the Anti-Counterfeit Authority together with Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and to give us this report in details, help me welcome Dr. Akoten from Anti-Counterfeit Authority. Mikono kwake.
The chief guest, allow me to speak from here because of the short cord which is connected to my computer here. The chief guest, Mr. Lawrence Karanja, in the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, Honorable Kanini Kega, the chair of the Parliamentary Committee on Trade, Mr. Wanyama Musiambo, the Deputy Head of Public Service and Coordinator of the Multi-Agency Team Against Illicit Trade, the Chair of the ACA Board of Directors, Madam Flora Mutai, the Country Director of Timea, Mr. Ahmed Farah, the CEO of CAM, Madam Phyllis Wakiaga, the CEO of ACA, Mr. Elema Lake, representative from government institutions which are represented here. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'll be making this high-level presentation on behalf of ACA, and basically I'll be looking at two reports, one on the farm level survey, consumers level survey, as well as also the National Observatory on Illicit Trade. Now, in terms of the outline, I'll be able to take you through briefly just about the introduction to this particular report. Then I'll take you through the farm level survey report, as well as also the consumer survey report and the National Illicit Trade Observatory. And finally, I'll be able to make the recommendations. Now, in terms of background, we are all aware that manufacturing is one of the key pillars of the Big Four agenda. Okay, I'm told to sit. The manufacturing sector is one of the key pillars of the Big Four agenda, and it's expected to contribute 15% to the GDP in the year 2022, up from 8% in the year 2017, almost double that. But we know that illicit trade poses a great challenge to the growth of the manufacturing sector and, of course, the whole economy. Last year in June, at the same time, just like this time, we launched the National Action Plan Against Illicit Trade, and one of the objectives of that plan is to reduce the level of illicit trade by 20% every year. So that means that we need to have statistics for us to monitor and evaluate how the multi-agency team is doing in terms of reducing illicit trade in Kenya. And that's what informed this national baseline survey. And I want to take this juncture to thank the UK's DFID through TIMEA for financing and also providing technical support to this particular study. So I'll be taking you through the farm level survey report, and basically the major objective of this survey is to come up with the level and the magnitude of illicit trade in Kenya. And of course also to come up also with an online platform that will enable the various government institutions as well as also the private sector to provide data into this particular system, which is an online system, so that we'll be able to know how we are doing in terms of fighting illicit trade. Now, in terms of scope, we looked at 6 areas of illicit trade, basically the counterfeiting, piracy, substandard goods, and customs goods, and excise goods, and restricted goods. So these are the various forms of illicit trade that we agreed as a multi-agency, of course, together with the various stakeholders, that we can focus on those 6 areas. Now, in terms of the methodology, we had 3 methods of calculating the magnitude, level, and prevalence of illicit trade. We have the international trade data, which is basically, these are secondary data from ComTrade database that looks at what the world declared as exporting to Kenya and what Kenya declared as having imported from the world. And basically the two data sets should actually be the same. But if there's any difference between the two, then it means then that is where illicit trade comes in. Now, the second method is the Seizure data method, where we collect information from the various government institutions, for example, KRA, ACA, Pharmacy and Postal Bond, and so on the seizures that they have done in the past. That is the secondary data. And finally, we have the farm level survey, where we collect information from the farms themselves, indicating what is the level of illicit trade that they've been actually been encountering, and of course the impact in terms of the farm sales. In terms of the findings, as you can see on the chart there, on the left we have a graph indicating the magnitude of illicit trade for all the 97 chapters as classified by the UN classification. And then on the right, we have the chart showing the 16 sectors that we have identified that are critical in the development of this country. So on the left side, we can see that the magnitude of illicit trade increased from 726 billion Kenya shillings in the year 2017 to 826 billion Kenya shillings in the year 2018, an increase of 13.8%. And for the 16 sectors, you can see that it increased from 519 billion Kenya shillings in the year 2017 to 586.16 billion Kenya shillings in the year 2018, an increase of 12.7%. Now, if you were to compute the GDP share of illicit trade in the whole economy, then you can see that the GDP share increased from 8.9% in the year 2017 to 9.3% in the year 2018, which actually mirrors the GDP share for the manufacturing sector, slightly above what the manufacturing sector actually is contributing in this country. So if we don't curtail the influx of illicit trade into this country, then it means that the manufacturing sector actually will be wiped off, and of course with a lot of repercussions. Now, in terms of the 16 sectors, which of these sectors contributes the highest in terms of illicit trade? As you can see, the one with the longest bar, which is the building, mining, and construction, at 23.3%, this is the one that is contributing highest to the illicit trade in Kenya, followed by energy, electrical, and electronics. You are aware of the various mobile phones and so on, electrical cables and so on that we have been able to seize. So that's the second. The third one is textile and apparel at 14.42%, and then followed by plastics and metal. And these 16 sectors basically account for 70% of the total illicit trade if you look at the 97 chapters. Now, in terms of the impact, one of the impact is, of course, loss in government revenue. And from all the 97 chapters, you can see that the government revenue loss increased from 102.23 billion Kenya shillings to 102.99 billion Kenya shillings, an increase of 1.7%. But if you look at the 16 sectors, somehow there was a reduction from 94.73 billion Kenya shillings in the year 2017 to 93.63 billion Kenya shillings, a reduction of 1.2%, of course, which is really good, and I think it's because of the impact of the multi-agency enforcement team in the year 2017 and 2018. Now, in terms of the sectoral shares, you can see that food, beverage, and non-alcoholic drinks was the major contributor of the government revenue loss at 23.19%, followed by textile and apparel, building and construction, energy, and electronics. That is in the year 2018. In terms of seizure data, we're able to collect data from various government institutions, enforcement institutions, for example, like ACA, KEBS, Kekobo, Farmers and Poison Board, and so on. And you can see that in the year 2016, we were able to seize 323 million Kenya shillings worth of illicit goods, which increased to 1.2 billion Kenya shillings in the year 2018, which is an increase and a growth rate of 294%. Some of these institutions, of course, they have some data, but then the data was not put in a way that we could actually convert it into Kenya shillings for us really to. So these figures actually could have even been higher than what it is currently. Now, the other section is about the farm level survey. In the farm level survey, this is a survey where we approached various manufacturers, and we were able to collect data from quite a number of the private sector. We collected 370 data from the farms out of 2,541 for IPR and non-IPR farms. And for the copyright holders, we were able to collect 120 questionnaires out of 2,397 copyright holders, basically representing 85% of the target sample. Between October 2019 and February 2020. Now, in terms of the findings, in terms of the farm sale losses, which are reported by the farms themselves, you can see that the total farm sale losses decreased over time from the year 2016 to the year 2018 by 121%. And for counterfeiting, of course, you can see that it was high in 2016, it decreased in 2017, then it went up slightly in 2018. And you can see the same thing also applies also to the other categories of illicit trade. Now, in terms of the hotspot counties, if you look at the proportions of the respondents who said that their farms have actually been able to lose revenue because of the different forms of illicit trade, we came up with kind of a hotspot counties. And the ones that are above the average are Nairobi, Mombasa, just as you can see from the chart. And in terms of the top three hotspot counties, in terms of counterfeiting, Nairobi was number one, followed by Mombasa and Nyeri. In terms of piracy, we have Nairobi County coming first, followed by Nakuru and Machakos. And then in the other forms of illicit trade, of course, we have Nairobi, Nyeri, and Mombasa. So basically, those are the top most counties, hotspot counties in the different levels of different types of illicit trade. Now, in terms of investment opportunity loss, again, we see here that the firms were not able to invest into their businesses because of illicit trade. And you can see that the amount of money that they could have put into the businesses have actually been increasing over time. In the year 2016, they lost the country actually lost 4.31 billion Kenya shillings, which increased to 7.9 billion Kenya shillings in the year 2017 and 10.6 billion Kenya shillings in the year 2018, an increase of 146%. And the same thing actually applies also to the other areas, except for counterfeiting, where the loss actually decreased from the year 2017 and 2018 from 4.4 billion Kenya shillings to 3.56 billion Kenya shillings. And perhaps probably it shows the impact of the multi-agency team against illicit trade, where the firms actually also declared that their farm sale losses actually have gone down, as also indicated by the statistics here. In terms of the government revenue loss, again we see the government losing revenue from 1.34 billion Kenya shillings in the year 2016, increasing to 4.867 billion Kenya shillings, an increase of 263%. And you can see the same thing also applies also to the other types of illicit trade. And means that when the government, of course, loses revenue, then it means that the government is not able to provide the public good. In terms of employment loss, again, you can see here that the country lost, of course, the manufacturing sector was able to lay off people because of illicit trade, and the number increased by 514% between the year 2016 and 2018. And you can see that in the different types of illicit trade, again, the number of people who are laid off actually has been increasing, except for counterfeiting. If you look at the year 2017 and 2018, somehow there was a decrease in the number of people who are laid off. And I think because of also the impact of multi-agency team against the illicit trade. Now I'm done with the farm level survey, so let me take you through the consumer survey report. In terms of the consumer survey report, basically we looked at three objectives. We wanted to measure the level of public awareness of counterfeit and other forms of illicit trade. The second one also is to track the consumer behavior. Once they've been trained, then how do they behave in terms of purchases of the different forms of illicit trade? And of course, the third one is to look at the effectiveness of the various strategies to combat illicit trade. Our sample size was 1,537 out of a population of 38 million shillings. I mean, 38 million people. And we came up with this sample size, of course, professionally using some statistical methods. And the data, the survey was conducted between September and October of 2019. We sampled consumers from different strata, that is 14 stratas, the corporate offices, the farmers, the manufacturing industries, the SMEs and well-established industries, the building and construction industry, consumers who are working in the health facilities, that is hospital, clinics and pharmacies, those ones who are working in schools, colleges and universities, of course, including students, entertainment industry. We have the open-air garages, hospitality industry, the hotels, clubs, and pubs, the beauty and grooming industry, the salons and spas, the counterfeit hotspot areas, the border communities, supermarkets, and bookshops. So basically, we covered a wide array of consumers in different consumer strata. And the results are as follows. In terms of the consumer awareness level of illicit trade, basically the question that we're asking is, what is your level of understanding of the different forms of illicit trade, where 1 is very low level, and 5, that's a Likert scale, and 5 is very high level. And the overall public awareness level came out to 64.14%. That means that 64% of Kenyans actually understand what the different forms of illicit trade is. And in terms of counterfeit goods, the percentage was 66.42%. Pirated goods 66.69%, substandard goods was 66.23%, and custom goods 60.21%, restricted goods 61.32%, and contraband goods 63.94%. So it means that Kenyans actually are, a good number of them actually are aware of the different forms of illicit trade. Now, if we look at counterfeiting alone, because ACA has also been carrying out internal surveys over the years from the year 2015 to the year 2018, and we wanted to compare with the National Baseline Survey that was just completed. And you can see that the trend in terms of public awareness has been increasing from 51.35% in the year 2015 to now 66.42% in the year 2019. So it means that it shows that actually our strategies in terms of combating counterfeiting and also creating public awareness on the different forms of illicit trade have actually been bearing fruits. Now, in terms of the purchases, we ask consumers to what extent have they been purchasing illicit trade. Now, 42% said yes, they have purchased different forms of illicit trade. 30% said they are not so sure whether they have purchased illicit trade or not. And 27% said, no, we have not purchased the different types of illicit trade. So the 30% could actually go either way. So if the 30% were sure that they actually purchased illicit trade, that means that actually around 72% have actually purchased illicit trade. So you can see the number of Kenyans actually who are purchasing illicit trade. Now, when you look at now the different types of illicit trade that they have been purchasing, to what is the extent, what is the ability of consumers to recognize these forms of illicit trade? Now, 64% of consumers said they are able to identify counterfeit goods. 46% of consumers said they are able to identify pirated goods, 49% for substandard, 23% for uncustomed, 22% for the restricted goods, and 30% for the contraband goods. So you can see that counterfeiting is easily identified by consumers, while uncustomed goods is a bit difficult to identify, including restricted goods. Now, in terms of the hotspot, which are the hotspot indicators? Basically, looking at the national average cases of respondents who indicated having purchased illicit traded products across the 47 counties. So you can see that counterfeiting came first with 28.34%, followed by substandard at 20.33%, and piracy at 10.15%. So these are the major illicit goods that have been purchased by consumers. That means counterfeiting comes first, followed by substandard, and piracy comes third. Now, in terms of the sectors, which sectors do consumers, purchase these particular products? So you can see that electrical and electronics comes number one, with 92.95% of consumers saying having purchased goods from that particular sector, followed by food, beverage and drinks, cosmetics, and leather and footwear. Now, in terms of the counties, which indicated the products that have been purchased that's above the average, because we look at the proportion of consumers who purchase various types of illicit goods, and when we took the average, then we counted now how many counties do we have, for example, for the counterfeit goods, for the pirated goods, and so on. Now, with regard to counterfeit goods, 27 counties have actually, we have consumers where they have purchased counterfeit goods above the national average. Followed, of course, we have the pirated goods, we have 26 counties, for substandard goods, 25 counties, for uncustomed goods, 22 counties, restricted goods, 19 counties, and contraband goods, 18 counties. So you can see that more than half of the counties have actually purchased the different types of illicit goods. Now, if we look at now the last one on the counterfeit goods, where we have 27 counties, which are these particular counties? So in the next slide, you can see now a map of Kenya indicating the different places, the counties where these counterfeit goods are actually being purchased. And the top 3 counties for counterfeit is Nairobi, followed by Mombasa, and followed by Nyeri in that particular county. And then you can actually do the same thing also for the other forms of illicit trade. For example, for the piracy, Nairobi came first, followed by Nakuru, Machakos came third. And for the other forms of illicit trade, Nairobi came first, followed by Mombasa, and lastly, Nyeri for the top 3 hotspot counties. Lastly, let me take you through the National Illicit Trade Observatory. And basically, the observatory is to capture the data that I've just presented in form of graphics, so that it's very easy for somebody really to see the data, the way it's coming out. And as you can see there, on the observatory is that you can see the data, the total size of illicit trade for the year 2018, which was 826 billion Kenya shillings. And then the next one is the size of illicit trade in the targeted sectors, which was 566 billion shillings in the year 2018. The third one is the size of illicit trade based on the seizure data. And the last one is the total number of seizures. So if you look at the left side of the dashboard of that observatory, you can see quite a number of indicators. For example, the size of illicit trade in the targeted sectors, size of illicit trade based on the seizures, and so on. So when you click on that, to be able to open the various statistics and also showing you the graphs and how we are doing it year on year. Now, at the top left right-hand corner, the IPR owners, that is the manufacturers, can also log in and provide various statistics on illicit trade. And of course, the law enforcement agencies can also log in also to provide also seizure data. So in the next slide, I'll be able to show you now. This is now the dashboard now for the law enforcement institutions. For example, seizures and complaints. So you'll be able to provide data about the seizures in terms of the date of the seizure, the place of the seizure, the type of illicit trade that you deal with, the source of the goods, which sector, and so on. And once you fill in the data, then you'll be able to submit it, and you'll be able to see the data under the organization's data. You can also do the same thing also for the complaints. If you receive the complaints, then you can enter the data into that structure and be able to see the complaints. So what I can say at this juncture is that every institution will be able to see their own data. For example, if it is KEBS will only see your own data, and you cannot see the data belonging to another institutions. KRA, the same thing, and so on. Under my organization's data, you can actually click on that, and you can download the data into your own computer, and it actually reduces a lot of typing in, because once you enter the data into the system, to be able to analyze, and you can see the data. Now, for the private sector, when the private sector also logs in, they will be able to submit the data in terms of the losses of sales, how much they have lost in terms of sales, either quarterly or even annually. They can provide also information about the loss of investments, the loss of employment, and the government loss of revenue. And they can actually give that data either on quarterly basis or annual basis. Now, in terms of the recommendations for the farm level survey, we have come up with quite a number of recommendations. One is on the legal reforms, basically strengthening the anti-illicit trade laws, to strengthen it, and also to ensure that the penalties are actually stiffer. Institutional reforms, where the various institutions that are playing a part in terms of combating different forms of illicit trade are strengthened, including also the county governments, also because the county governments also play a major role also in terms of trade. Monitoring illicit trade is also very important. As I mentioned that in the National Anti-Illicit Trade report that we launched last year, monitoring of the impact of the multi-agency is very important. So we'll be able to monitor how the multi-agency team is doing in terms of reducing illicit trade. And one of the other aspects of illicit trade that we'll also be looking at is also the falsified products, which is also another form of illicit trade. The other one is also about the reporting, where we'll be able to report on the various complaints and also track actions by the government agencies. The fifth one also is to put in place also farm-level measures also to encourage sharing of knowledge. We found that quite a number of companies have different strategies of how they can reduce maybe issues of illicit trade and so on. How do we put measures into place to ensure that that information actually reaches to a wider number of manufacturers? The sixth one is also to put in place also import-based illicit traded, measures to combat the importation of illicit goods. We found that there are a number of countries, of course, source countries where most of these counterfeit goods come. Actually, most of the imported goods actually are imported. Most of the illicitly traded products in the country are imported. And therefore, how can we engage bilaterally with different countries to ensure that illicit goods do not come into the country? And then, of course, on the domestic side also, how can we also ensure that domestically manufacturers actually are doing the right business? Can we come up with a registration system to ensure that only those ones who have met a minimum, certain criteria can actually be registered to continue manufacturing in the country. Now, in terms of the consumer level survey, the first one is to enhance publicity and awareness of the various forms of illicit trade. As you can see that some forms of illicit trade, of course, have low levels of public awareness. Then how can we come up with strategies in order to increase the level of public awareness in those different forms of illicit trade? The second one, of course, is also to raise the ability of consumers to recognize illicit traded products by working together with IPR owners, and of course the different stakeholders. The third one, of course, is also to how do we how do we build knowledge among the consumers so that they can recognize illicitly traded products, again working with the different stakeholders. The fourth one, of course, is the import-based illicit traded product, which I've mentioned, as well as also the domestic industry-based illicit traded products. How do we come up with measures to ensure that the consumers also, they're empowered not to purchase domestically produced, illicitly traded products. And the last one is to review also the regulations, especially on the retail outlets, to ensure that we have a mechanism of traceability, so that when a consumer purchases a product, we can actually trace it back to to the seller or the retailer or even to the manufacturer, so that action can be taken on those unscrupulous business persons. So thank you very much. That's the end of this presentation.
Thank you. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akoten. Can we put our hands for Dr. Akoten for a very insightful presentation he has made? Allow me just to recognize the presence of Director Onyancha, who is the Director of Weights and Measures and also on the board of directors at the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. Please, if you can wave, Director Onyancha. That is Director Onyancha representing and also holding brief for the PS trade, Mr. Weru. Also allow me to recognize the indigenous farm which did this this survey, this study, which is the Integrated Development Consultant, IDCL, represented by Mr. Kagira. Let's put our hand for him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, boss. Nashukuru sana. We are using a hashtag. Hashtag is illicit trade KE, illicit trade KE. If you can go on Twitter, wajue tuko hapa. Santeni sana. We are about to have a panel discussion that is going to take a very few minutes. And for that purposes, I'm going to invite Agnes Ngaringo, who is my co-MC, so that she can tell us about the panel list.
Thank you, Frederick. At this juncture, I would like to invite our panelists, and I'll just take a few minutes, 2 minutes, to introduce them, and then hand over back to the MC. So we have what we call this morning a power panel, because of the different roles that they play in relation to combating illicit trade. Allow me to introduce the first panelist, who is the chair of the board of directors for the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, comes in the panel wearing that particular hat, but also wears another very important hat of being a Kenyan local manufacturer of what is called the Melvin's tea, the most delicious tea in Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, we put our hands together for Madam Flora Mutahi. Our next panelist is also from government, and that is from Kenya Revenue Authority. She has already addressed us, wearing the hat of the Commissioner General, and now she comes in as the Deputy Commissioner in charge of enforcement and anti-illicit practices at the Kenya Revenue Authority. We put our hands together for Madam Anne Irongo, please. Our next panelist from Kenya Bureau of Standards, and that is one who wears the hat of the Director, Quality Assurance and Inspections. put our hands together for Mr. Bernard Nguyo. The next speaker in the panel from the private sector has been with the Anti-Counterfeit Authority since inception, representing all the private sector associations, individual institutions. That is the CEO of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, who also sits at the board of the ACA representing the private sector. Our hands together for Madam Phyllis Wakiaga. And the next panelist will be on video call. And this is one who represents all of us here because we are all consumers. Also sits at the Anti-Counterfeit Agency Board of Directors, but is here today. We'll be seeing him, we'll be hearing from him as representing the consumers as the CEO of COFEC, and that is Mr. Stephen Mutoro. We'll be seeing him on screen shortly. Thank you. Very important because he has driven this war on illicit trade for a long time, particularly on the enforcement aspect. We have seen him, we have seen his work, and works with us day by day as we combat illicit trade. As the different agencies in government, private sector, we put our hands together for the Deputy Head of Public Service and Coordinator of the Multi-Agency Anti-Illicit Enforcement, Mr. Wanyama Musiambo. Lastly, but not the least, very important for policy direction, for laws, the legal statutes, all made in Parliament. We are very happy and honored to have also in the panel, again, one who has worked with us day by day in all our events for the anti-illicit activities. Here, sitting with us, representing the Parliamentary Trade Committee. He is the chair of that particular committee, and let's put our hands together for Mr. Kanini Kega. And over to our MC, he'll take us through the panel. We sit where we are because we may not move so much with the pandemic issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes. And for purposes of eye contact, I'm going to move so that I can be able to hold the contact of my panelist. My name is Frederick. You can easily call me Fred. I'm going to sit over here so that we can start a short discussion. And after that, we are going to do our launching. Every panelist, I'm going to give you a maximum of 3 minutes to answer the question I'm going to throw your way. Kindly stick to 3 minutes because of time. You understand that we are living in very difficult times, so we might not be here for long. I'll start with the chairperson, board of directors and manufacturer. I'm a manufacturer for Melvin Teas, Ms. Flora Mutahi. And my question would be, ACA's mandate includes coordination with other agencies at the national, regional, and international level. The study is a milestone in this collaboration. What is the greatest revelation from where you sit?
Good morning, and thank you very much. Thank you for introducing me, Agnes. I think the CEO forgot to introduce me as the chairperson of the board. However, what has, first of all, our chief guest, Karibu Sana, Mr. Kanini Kega, Wanyama Musiambo, and my fellow directors, good morning and welcome, and thank you for joining us on this auspicious day where we are celebrating our 10 years. We are also launching this baseline study, all at the same time. So we've been waiting for this study for a very long time because you know it is, as it is said in business, what doesn't get measured, what doesn't get checked doesn't get measured. So we're very happy to actually see the results of this study. And I think for me, the glaring and biggest thing that I have noticed is the fact that the size of illicit trade, first of all, the growth of it from 17, which is 7.2 billion, to 18 of 8.2 billion. That's a whole billion growth, which is actually, they're saying is 14%, being bigger than the size of the manufacturing industry. As you know, I was the previous chairperson of the industry, and our mandate was to grow it, like we had said earlier, to 15% of GDP. And in 2018, it was actually 7.7. So we are actually fighting something that is bigger than an industry that we are trying to grow. I think for me that was one of the biggest things. And what does that do for us? It takes away jobs, and I think in the study they also talked about the fact that there's a lot of lack of jobs, and I think the employment was 685 jobs in 2016. And now they're talking about 4,241 jobs in 2018. We are trying to create jobs. Manufacturing contributes 300,000, just over 300,000 jobs to the economy. So if we have something that is actually fighting that, then we are losing a lot. Government revenue losses at 98 billion, especially at a time where we are trying to raise government losses, is also something that is actually quite staggering and quite disappointing to us as a country. So for me, I think we welcome the study. We are very happy we have a base, and like the National Action Plan is stating, that we are trying to reduce it 20% year on year. And so now that we have a base, instead of when we saw 18 and 19, the growth of 1 billion, we're hoping to be able to reduce it going forward.
Thank you very much for my next question will go to I can throw the question to you as they are working the mic. My question will go to KRA. What kind of losses are we seeing from the survey in relation to loss of revenue, and what does this mean for our country?
Thank you very much. Looking at the losses of revenue by the survey and what we have seen through our interventions, the losses indicate losses in terms of government taxes. From where we sit as KRA, this is very critical for us because our mandate is to drive revenue. And then if we are seeing the losses coming up because of illicit trade, that becomes critical for us because the revenue is proportional. The revenue taxes are proportional to the losses on illicit trade. As KRA, we have had various experiences in terms of illicit trade. We have seen great losses through the sale of alcohol, contraband goods on imports, and this has been a big concern for us. It has not gone without concern by ourselves because we have come up with various strategies to address this. We have automated our processes, both at import level. We have scanners where we can identify illicit trade coming in, and we can also prevent unwanted goods into the country. And the domestic approach, we are looking at tracking and tracing the domestic produced products so that we can track them from the production all the way to the consumer. We have introduced an automated system, ETMS, electronic goods management system, to track the domestic produced goods, and that is a plus for Kenya Revenue Authority because we are able to track our revenues through tracking the goods. And we have done this on the most counterfeited goods, which are the syntax goods, that is alcohol and tobacco, and we have had some achievement on that. We have enhanced our market surveillance procedures, and we have devolved through the multi-agency approach to the regions. Another key thing we have done as an authority in this, because illicit trade is a big harm to our taxes, we have been able to devolve to all the regions and move to where the consumers are doing their business. And together with the multi-agency, we are working together. And going forward, as KRA, we have realized that the best approach is multi-agency level approach, where we work together with the other agencies so that we can enhance our effectiveness on the crackdown on the illicit trade. So that is it, and we continue enforcing on it. Thank you very much.
Very beautiful insights there. We might not have questions from the media, but we'll allow you to ask those questions after we've launched. We will give you the panelists so that you can have one-on-one with them. So allow me for now to just ask the pertinent questions, and then you might be able to pull them aside and ask those questions. Let me throw this question to Kenya Bureau of Standards, Mr. Guyo, who is the Director, Quality Assurance and Inspection. You have seen the report, you've heard the report. What is your take on the levels of consumer awareness with regard to issues of substandard, and how does this align with the strategies of KEBS in curbing illicit trade and specifically substandard goods in the country, with a special focus on imports and effective collaboration with other agencies?
Thank you very much. On behalf of KEBS, first I want to appreciate the effort that has been put into the preparation of this report, and taking the opportunity now to congratulate the Anti-Counterfeit Authority and all partners who contributed in whichever way in coming up with this document. It has given us a very useful statistical information that will buttress what things that we are already doing as Kenya Bureau of Standards, and of course shape the strategies that we adopt, especially identification of the key areas of focus going forward, even as we play our role in the fight against illicit trade. So focusing on your question on substandard goods, let me just focus on two statistical items that came out of that report. And the first one is that the average level of public awareness that substandard products is a form of illicit trade is at 66%. And the other item that drew my attention is that the level of the ability of consumers to recognize substandard products is at 49%. Mm-hmm. Now, from these two items, I think the level of awareness for consumers is high. We would love it to be at 100%, but at least it gives us a good figure that we can work with. And even if you take the 49% of consumers that are able to recognize substandard products, that's still a very impressive level, because detecting a substandard product as opposed to maybe just a counterfeit product is a bit complex. It's not just about what you see. Some aspects of substandard characteristics have to do with the technical issues that can only be determined in a laboratory such form of testing. So that is a good number that indicates that the level of awareness for consumers is good for us to work with. Mm-hmm. So for us as the Kenya Bureau of Standards, I think it vindicates the initiative that we started early in the year called Wajibika na KEBS, because with this information, what we now are focusing on is moving away from consumer, or scaling up from consumer awareness to consumer involvement. Mm-hmm. And there is an initiative that was launched by our peers early this year called Wajibika na KEBS, which brings together a communication package for consumers, one, giving them a tool to be able to identify a substandard product, and two, how they can then act once they get that substandard product in the market. That is a mechanism of reporting back to KEBS. And this initiative is already gaining for us very good results. So the other thing that I think the report enables us to do is to identify the key areas of focus in terms of sectors and in terms of the counties that now going forward we need to put our energy in order to address the problem of substandard products. And finally, I think it has also brought out a very good gain that you can have, just as my colleague from KRA has said, in the multi-agency approach. And let me just use another data item for that. The level of our consumer ability to detect a substandard product is at 49%. But the level of the same consumer to detect a counterfeit product is at 66%. So if we work together, as we have already started, continue working together with the other agencies, it means that we can immediately be able to bridge that gap. Because if a consumer who detects a counterfeit product is able to report to Kenya Bureau of Standards or through the ACA report, we get that information, chances are a counterfeit product is also a substandard product. So we'll have already an ability to raise up consumer involvement from 49% to 66%, but just by working together with the other agencies. So for us, I do believe this is a very good report, a very good document that will throw a lot of light into how we work going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping time, just in time for my watch to inform me that time up. Asante sana, Mr. Guyo. Let me throw this question to our very great people on the podium. Kenya Association of Manufacturers CEO, Ms. Phyllis Wakiaga. And this will be my question. As part of the representatives from the private sector, CAM participated in this survey. What is the impact of illicit trade on business firms as per this particular study, and what interventions would CAM employ to ensure monitoring and regulation of firms from a business perspective?
Thank you very much for the question. Allow me, first of all, to start by congratulating the Anti-Counterfeit for celebrating 10 years and also for a very good survey and study. This has been a very timely report because it's been able to share insights that are going to be very useful in decision-making going forward. As the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, we've continued to collaborate and partner with the agency. We've done a lot of work around developing enforcement manual in 2015 and updating it. And this manual has really been at the forefront of coordinating and assisting in the multi-agency approach by bringing together all the laws that touch on counterfeits. We've also recently worked on the standard operating procedures for the multi-agency team. So we appreciate everyone and all the stakeholders led by the members on the panel here. Out of this survey, some of the information that has been very revealing is the fact that the illicit trade has been growing, and the growth has been 10% between 2017 and 2018. The impact of illicit trade has also led to loss of business at farm level. There's also been loss of employment. I think the statistics, if you look at the document, indicated that the loss of employment moved from 645 jobs to about 4,000 jobs between the year 2016 and 2018. This, unfortunately, is very sad for a country that is really looking at job creation. The other things that have been pointed out as the impact of illicit trade is the issue of loss of government revenue. I think the statistics indicated that government has been losing revenue over the years because of illicit trade. For the manufacturing sector, the chair spoke about the fact that this is a priority sector that contributes about 7.5% to the GDP of the country, and it's unfortunate that the illicit trade figures seem higher than the contribution of manufacturing. And from the statistics given by Dr. Akoten, some of the priority sectors like the building, mining and construction, energy, textile and apparel, and plastics and plastic sector are actually 70% of the illicit trade. By and large, what this indicates, therefore, is the seriousness of the need to tackle the issues around illicit trade if we are going to be able to grow our manufacturing sector. As an industry body, we are going to continue to work closely with our members to ensure that, first of all, that all of them are able to report any illicit trade activities to the relevant authorities. Also working closely with them and the consumer bodies on public awareness so that we can have even increased awareness over and above what we have seen in this study. The issue of multi-agency, I think, has been very critical, and a lot of the gains we have made have been through the leadership of Bwana Musiambo and the multi-agency approach. So we want to continue to see that approach going forward, and also the close working relationship with the National Assembly, led by Honorable Kanini Kega, to just ensure that we have the right policy and legislation will also go a long way in addressing this issue. So these statistics have been very useful, and we intend to disseminate them to all our members. Thank you.
Most appreciated, Madam Phyllis. Before we go to other panelists, our chair, Madam Flora, this report is very detailed. How did you do it, and how do you see Anti-Counterfeit Authority succeeding in this endeavor?
Thank you very much. Like you can see, the room is full of technical experts. We have our Dr. Akoten. We had the lead consultant. Of course, through the support of TIMEA, they had funded us to actually do the report. So the ability to do it is not in question, and the results we have been given also are not in question. So that is pretty impressive. I think what do we see we are going to do with it? I think through this coordinated approach, the multi-agency approach you heard being chaired by Mr. Musiambo, we've already received quite a lot of results. Like you saw the difference between 2016 and 18, there was a huge drop in illicit goods in general. And of course, this is because there was, there was a big impetus towards it. So in that regard, we'll continue to do that, being one of the coordinators of that through the national approach. That is one of the ways that we are going to do it. So what we're going to do is continue to collaborate with the public, with private institutions, as we did, to make sure that we continue to do that. Our biggest claim to fame coming shortly is really going to be our IPR recordation, which is what we have come out with, where each individual company will actually record their IPR. IPR is intellectual property. So if I'm the registered owner, I will record it, and it will be known. So that when your goods are being imported from outside, already the agency checking will be able to know that, yes, that IPR belongs to so-and-so, and they are the registered importer. You can see the power that is going to give us to be able to actually curb importation that comes from imported goods, which I've always said is about 70% of the problem. So that is one of the biggest things that we are going to put together. For the local goods, what we will do is what we continue to do, which is enforcement and public awareness. Unfortunately, in the report, you noticed that there is public awareness. However, people still want to buy counterfeit goods. So I think they're not understanding the social, the economic, and the environmental impact that this has to them, their lives, their jobs, their future, and their country as a whole. So it also puts a little bit of pressure on us to continue to engage the consumer and put power in the hands of the consumer. We talk a lot with the IP owners to actually come up with mechanisms where, as a member of the public, I can pick a product. Like just today, we were being explained to on the way in with Mr. Karanja, where a toothpaste is supposed to have different colors spiraling out. But when you press it, this one was just coming out one color, white. If you put that kind of power into the hands of the consumer, we hope we are going to see a change. But more importantly, we want to actually empower them to realize what is important. The other one, hang on, there was the other one that is important, is the observatory, the one that Dr. Akoten shared. Because one of the things we found, and the study you noticed was unable to actually tell us local counterfeit goods. Because when goods are seized, we don't actually now go and define, is it local, is it imported? So the observatory, where we are all going to start recording our information in collaboration with our other agencies, will ensure that we are able to be, as ACA, we are able to do our mandate better.
Thank you very much. Appreciated for those sentiments. I don't know if we found Mr. Mutoro online. We were to have him online, our media team. Did we? Have we? As they confirm that, I can go to Mr. Wanyama Musiambo, the Deputy Head of Public Service and Coordinator, Multi-Agency, the enforcement. Mr. Musiambo, illicit trade is the mandate of various government and private sector agencies. What is the recommended institutional structure to entrench multi-agency approach in the war against illicit trade? And how does it align to these findings?
Thank you so much for that question. Let me also start by recognizing the guest of honor, my brother, the CAS, the Honorable Member of Parliament, Mheshimiwa Kanini Kega, and my other colleagues, the panelists, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I want to join the rest also to thank the Anti-Counterfeit Authority for this very important baseline survey. And also thank Trademark East Africa for the support in the whole endeavor. Now, this baseline survey is actually a milestone towards the fight against illicit trade, because this baseline survey informs us regarding the extent to which we have the counterfeit trade in this country. Now, specifically on the question about multi-agency, the institutional framework, I wanted to tell all of us here, ladies and gentlemen, that in this country, today as we sit here, the multi-agency approach is indeed already entrenched. And it is not only when it comes to fighting illicit trade alone, but across government, we now find it the most appropriate way of doing things, because it has removed us from staying in our silos, staying in our corners, but we come together so that we don't have excuses. Where we have to make decisions, we don't need to say, this is my department, my mandate says this, my blah blah says this, but it's a whole government approach. So I wanted to inform you that indeed the question of the multi-agency approach across government, including in the fight against illicit trade, is already entrenched, and that is the way to go, and the government is not going to turn away from that in the foreseeable future. Now, as regards specifically what we've done, we have looked at the report, the baseline survey. Of course, we have already been informed by other panelists, and we already know that in this fight against illicit trade, various government agencies have been put together. I don't need to mention them, they are already known. You have already seen KRA, we have Anti-Counterfeit, we have the Kenya Bureau of Standards, Farmers and the Poisons, many of them, they have already been put together. And therefore, that is the way we are going to go. The only thing we are going to do now that we have this baseline survey, and already we have having developed the National Action Plan to combat the same, that is illicit trade, it's just a question of now moving forward from here to be able to clothe and put a structure that will specifically be dealing with this, now that we already have the National Action Plan to do this work. So we may not be able at this juncture to go into the nitty-gritties of how the structure will look like, but I want to inform you that indeed this structure of the multi-agency is already aligned to the findings of this baseline survey. And moving forward shortly, we'll be able to say who sits where, who does what, who does the other. But more importantly, it is that we are already in the multi-agency setting, we are in the multi-agency approach, and that system has been entrenched. What remains is just to clothe here and there, and then we move forward. In conclusion to that question, I just want to take this 1 minute to reaffirm that indeed, to reaffirm the resolve of the multi-agency to dismantle, to continue dismantling the criminal networks involved in this vice of illicit trade. And this one, we are not turning back. Anybody can take this to the bank, that we will not turn back until we ensure that we make a turnaround. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When we have you around and when you use those words like dismantle, I know it will happen. Thank you so much for that. I want to go to the chair, Parliamentary Trade Committee, Mr. Kanini Kega. We understand that trade is a devolved function. So how do you see as the role of counties in combating illicit trade, and how can the country harmonize these roles nationally?
Thank you so much, and I also want to take this opportunity to recognize my CS and the other team, and also thank the anti-counterfeit team for coming up with this wonderful document. Secondly is to also congratulate Wanyama Musiambo, because he was a face of the purge that we had, and of course it bore a lot of good fruits. And here I see that you have said is EBS, Order of Burning Spear, but it is not. He is now chief of the Order of the Burning Spear. And I believe that that honor you got basically because you participated very well in this fight. And I also want to say that I also got a similar award, maybe because of the work that we did.
Congrats.
Thank you. Trade is a devolved function. And for us as members of parliament, we have three roles. Of course, the one that you know is making laws, the other one is oversight, and the last one is representation. This constitution, the 2010 constitution, is a very progressive constitution, because it does not only give the role of making laws to parliamentarians, it also gives an opportunity to each and every person to make a contribution. You as an individual, you as an entity, can originate any amendment to the law. And I want to challenge you. Don't wait for us to just make laws, because I always say it's the wearer of the shoe who knows where it pinches or it hurts. Propose the various legislations, and it will be upon us to make and enact those legislations, and we will do it. The second one is on the role of the counties. As you have clearly said, trade is devolved. However, in manner of policy formulation is still at the national government. The report that you have gotten today, I have heard that my county, Nyeri, is ranked third in terms of illicit trade. It's not something that I'm supposed to be proud about, and I'm not. And we have to do something about it. But the challenge that is faced in Nyeri in terms of illicit trade is not the same challenge that we have in Mandela. For example, Mandela, they could, because of the nature of the border that they could have illicit trade because of the products that are coming out of the country. But maybe in Nyeri, it could be that some manufacturing is happening in Nyeri. So the laws that will be made in Nyeri will definitely be different from the laws that will be made in Mandela. And we will be encouraging our governors to make sure that at least they participate and encourage their county assemblies to come up with practical laws, not copy-pasting, not copy-pasting laws from different counties, because they have different challenges. And we will be able to work together with them, mirror those laws that they are having in their counties to be mirrored at the national level. And we will be able to help them and participate in that. The second one is to make sure that we have stiffer penalties. You know, look at a situation, for example, a person who has participated in importation, for example, of goods worth billions of shillings. The kind of punishment those people get, honestly, it encourages them to still continue with that business. And I think it's incumbent of us as members of parliament to make sure that we have stiffer penalties, but also work very, very closely with also the other arm of, the third arm, which is the judiciary, which actually operationalizes what we have actually passed. The last one is on business legislation. Most of the counties are very firm in enforcing the registration of businesses, but they don't follow to see what these enterprises are doing, whether they are even doing legitimate business. And I think it's a high time we also tell the county governments that since trade is devolved, also make sure that you follow up and ensure that the business permit that you gave to that particular enterprise, that enterprise is doing legitimate business, and they're also doing business that conforms to the certificate that you have actually given. And lastly is to say that the counties have also the responsibility to make sure that those people who are participating in businesses have business licenses and permits, because there are so many people who are also doing businesses, yet they don't have any business permit. So working together between the national government and the county government, I believe that we are going to weed out this menace, because it is a collective responsibility. If we don't fight anti-counterfeit products or illicit trade, we are saying that we are going to build Kenya, buy Kenya, build Kenya. We will not. We will only be building a few individuals who are involved in illicit trade. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Kanini. We know that Parliament is very busy this season, a lot of politics, but you found time for us, and we appreciate. We ask you, those of us who are here, if you have not registered through the link that we sent you, kindly do so. I'm being told that we have Mr. Mutoro online. This will be good. If you can hear me, Mr. Mutoro is the CEO of COFEC. You can hear me? Hello? Yes, Mr. Mutoro. Good having you. We are having very important discussions here, and we are doing quite well. I'll give you a few minutes because we believe that your input in this discussion is very important. And if you don't mind, let me ask you this question. I believe you've got the report. Consumer behavior is critical in the war against illicit trade. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Any chance you can hear me? I guess we have a problem with another consumer issue. We have a problem with the network, but I don't know whether you can hear me. Can you?
Absolutely, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Msijali, ni hali ya mitambo. Can you hear me, Mr. Mutoro?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Beautiful. I was saying that we are having very important discussions in here, and we believe that your input as the CEO of COFEC will be of benefit to us in this session. And allow me to ask you this question. We have seen that consumer behavior is critical in the war against illicit trade. How would consumer bodies like COFEC assist in transforming consumer mindsets and the behavioral change?
Yeah, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think very quickly I would like to appreciate the ACA, but straight to your question, that panel, and I've listened very carefully, I can actually see where the problem is, and I can see the entire can actually provide a solution. And I'll just take two issues. One would be the question of consumer awareness, and then the second one is enforcement. On awareness, I think we'll create more meaning to this report if we can be able to dissect it and give it to the relevant people so that it doesn't appear like it's merely an event, because the issue on consumer protection is always about a process. On the issue of enforcement, and I'm very happy to see the chairman of trade in the National Assembly, I think the question that he's actually saying is what consumers will be looking for. We are losing about 826 billion. I think the question then must be asked, how much is the government investing in the war against counterfeits? And number two, the question about legislation. He talked about stiffer penalties. When are we going to have probably a review of the ACA Act? But fundamentally, there are two issues about awareness creation and the issue on enforcement. And very lastly, the concept of MITO, the multi-agency, actually brings in the question, are these individual institutions in government doing enough on their own? I think the answer is there for anybody, is anybody's guess. In that regard, it might also be very important to see whether we can look back at, for example, the functions of this institution and see whether we can harmonize them. And very importantly, also look at the role of the media in all this, because media is a very key partner. And I would expect that going forward, we can actually have a house full where we not only talk about supply issues, because looking at that report, it talks about 95% about supply issues, nothing possibly or so little in terms of demand side, where of course the consumers are represented. So I would like to give an assurance, yes, consumers want to support the war against counterfeits, but they're asking questions, who's doing the counterfeits? Where are the convictions? What is the role of, for example, the ACA? What's the role of MITO? We are reporting problems today. What are the solutions? Yes, we need a baseline, but the question then must be asked, what are the clear, smart objectives that we are going to put in place beginning today with a baseline so that we can then address this challenge? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutoro. Very good insights there. I believe everyone in this room, they've had your part to play, and the questions that he's asking from National Assembly, he's asking the ACA, your role in this and how to curb this, and it is upon us to take that burden and work with the question Kofek is asking. Let me go back just a bit to Madam Anne and ask you this. It may be the final question because of our time. What strategies is KRA applying in order to address revenue loss to illicit trade, both as an individual institution and in collaboration with others?
I think earlier on, I alluded to the strategies KRA has put in place. Just to revisit the same, we have automated our processes in a big way. And specifically, like I said before, on the imports, that is where we have a lot of illicit trade there. We have the scanners. We have invested a lot on that across all the borders. Domestically, we are tracking. That is a system that we invested a lot. And as Kofek has said, dealing with the consumer is key for us because we are able even to train the consumers how to identify illicit alcohol, illicit cigarettes, because these are the key areas. We're also talking of legislation, making our tax laws tough to be able to minimize the counterfeiters in this area. We are saying that our laws are so effective currently because we are even able to take over the enforcement of the counterfeiters and destroy it. And that does not mean we cannot do better. We are continuously trying to improve our laws in that area. We are also trying to really work with the multi-agency, as I've said, and to be present. Because unless we are present in the market, we are not able to really track the illicit. So the presence of KRA and multi-agency across board is key, and we have really emphasized on that by devolving to all the regions. And I think with that and what now the survey has unpacked in terms of showing the levels of consumer awareness, we are able to enhance our strategies. And again, looking at the numbers for illicit trade, it means more investment even by multi-agency and KRA involved so that we are able to address the numbers with an equal weight of the investment in this area.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that answer. Because of time, I'm seeing our time is very much gone. We were supposed to be done with this by 11:15. But for a parting shot, our very senior, Mr. Musiambo, I'll ask you this. We are seeing losses after losses after losses. 98 billion shillings government loss revenue from 97 billion in 2017. Employment losses increasing by 519%. Huge. Sales losses declining by 57%. Mr. Musiambo, most illicit goods are imported. We know that. What strategies should be put in place to curb this?
Thank you. Indeed, it is true. From the baseline survey, we have seen exactly as you have put the question. We have seen the losses. We continue to see the same. And it is true also that most of these, most of what is happening, illicit goods are coming through across beyond our borders. But I just wanted to make it very clear, which we all know, that as a country, we are not living in isolation. We live with our neighbors, we live with other sister states. We are not in an island. And therefore, Kenya is a member of the East African community, for example, in our immediate neighborhood. Kenya is a member of IGAD. Kenya is a member of COMESA, just to mention those ones. And bear in mind that the people involved in illicit trade, carrying things like Mheshimiwa Kanini Kega just rightly said, when you go to the northeastern region of this country, the people who are involved in this, indeed, are not governments. It is individual criminals. And therefore, as a country, we continue to partner with our sister neighbors to ensure that we take care of our borders. The whole question of border coordination, we have actually strengthened our borders. Today, if you go to all our borders, you go to Namanga, you go to Busia, you go to Malaba, you will see a one-stop shop where all the government operatives or all government agencies are positioned to ensure that nothing illicit comes in. But then we have also to accept and to really come to note that we also have a border that is porous. We have a long border, and those who are involved or those who are hell-bent in doing illicit trade, they do not necessarily go through the legitimate border or the legitimate entry and exit points, but they pass through other places. But all the same, government has taken care of the borders, particularly the borders, like now, as we sit here, we have all our officers, like in the northeastern region, and we have said anything that comes in that is illicit, we are not going to waste time because people come in, they don't belong here. When you get all of them, they will abandon their vehicles and run away. So what do? We immediately destroy those illicit goods that come in. Mm-hmm. So indeed, it's true. I quite agree with you. This is a valid question, that there is a problem sometimes coming from outside our borders. But then we are also members, and then we have bilateral arrangements through which we are able to address these issues. And they are currently and actively being addressed because it is not governments that are involved in illicit trade, but it is those individuals. So be it from our side or from the other side, the whole issue or the whole issues are being addressed through exchange of information, sharing information across, and ensuring that the criminals are indeed eradicated from our midst, both here and the other side. That is the best way we can approach this issue because it is across the borders. And it's government to government in a bilateral arrangement, ensuring that the criminals from both sides are removed from this trade.
Thank you very much. I'm on this side of the podium, and I'll give this last parting shot to Mr. Kanini Kega. Still on imports, most of illicit these goods, the gateway is the East African community. How do you see Kenya partnering with EAC members to eradicate illicit trade?
Thank you so much. And I want to start by saying that a chain is as strong as the weakest link. We are in an East African community. We do interborder trade. And if there is any country that is not very firm on illicit or dealing with illicit trade, then definitely, it will definitely affect us. So there needs to be serious consultation and working together between the governments that make East Africa community. Because if there is one that is not very keen, then definitely we will falter. The second one is on harmonized tax regime. If, for example, one country in East Africa has a different tax regime with the other, there will definitely be case of illicit trade. Because where the taxes are low, then you'll find goods going to that country and finally somehow ending up in the country that it was not intended to. We have seen goods coming through the port of Mombasa. They go to the other countries and finally they find themselves in Kenya, basically because of the different tax regimes. So the tax regime must be harmonized. The third one is the goodwill from also the leaders. The regional leaders, and I think at that level, I believe that they are working very, very closely. It needs to be now cascaded to the various agencies that are running the different countries. But moving forward, I know with the kind of cooperation that we have in East Africa, I believe as a team, we will be able to eradicate the issue of illicit trade.
Most appreciated. Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate our panelists. Kindly, if you can, and clap for them. Asanteni sana. Thank you for your time. Thank you for those insights. I'm very sure they are going to be very helpful going forward. This particular juncture, I want to invite our Executive Director, Mr. Elema Halake, so that he can invite other guests.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those insightful discussions we have had. First, let me apologize that I have not adequately recognized my chair. And I don't want to live here when that has not happened, Chair. The bit is that the Chair of Anti-Counterfeit Authority is a very visible personality, and therefore I really apologize that I have not adequately recognized my chair. On that note, allow me now to welcome the Chair of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority Board, Madam Flora Mutai, who will now invite the chief guest such that he can lead us in the unveiling of the baseline survey report. Let's put our hands for the chair. Karibu, Chair.
If there's one thing I haven't mastered is how to talk with a mask. Maybe it will come with the territory as we continue.
Name it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. So far, you've had quite a bit about the baseline study on this auspicious day of our World Anti-Counterfeit Day. And the minute you hear the word world, you can already tell that it is not a Kenyan problem. Globalization, counterfeit is actually a very big global problem. And like you've seen, it is bigger than some industries. It's bigger than some countries put together. This is because, counterfeiters like shortcuts through life. And I think to be able to fight them, we also need to be able to put in as much as they are putting in. So in summary to what we've actually heard this morning, I think there are three things I think we need to do, is to continue to collaborate. We need to continue to collaborate as the multi-agency team. As you've heard, we've already got successes, so therefore if it's working, don't change it. Counties, we've been notified the importance of actually having counties join this fight individually, down to even putting it into some of the laws like Mr. Kaninikega has mentioned. We need to pass some requisite laws, like the recordation that is coming up. It will be important for us to then be able to fight. We need to make it actually very, very punitive. You know, today, if you're caught counterfeiting, you really are charged for the first-time offender 3 times of what you're caught with, second-time offender 5 times of what you're caught with. We need to criminalize it further and maybe make sure that you never trade again. We shall leave that to the more legal people to put it. We need to collaborate also still around the platform for actually collecting information, because like you saw, once we have the information, now we're able to target ourselves and we are able to move. Private sector too must also collaborate with us when we are requesting for information. It is really unfortunate that locally we have no information. Going forward, of course, due to this exercise, we've seen the importance, and we have come out in that observatory to be able to actually do that. Other government agencies helping in enforcement. As you know, ACA is not currently at the port, so we have to collaborate with KRA, KEBS, and the like. So far, so good, but we would also still want to push for further collaboration and perhaps even readmittance back to the port, because 70% of our problem is happening right there. Knowledge sharing is also going to be very, very important. Like I was saying earlier, defining the difference between what is counterfeit and what is not that easy, but again, the more power we have in our hands, the more able we'll be able to do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we collaborate and together we'll be able to curb this menace called counterfeit. And that way we'll be able to build the Kenya that we are looking for. We have a problem that is bigger than an industry that we are putting a lot of funds to, which is the manufacturing industry. So then we need to stop and look at ask ourselves, are we putting in a similar amount to this sector that is called illicit trade? With those few remarks, I would now like to invite our chief guest, the CAS in our Ministry of Trade, Lawrence Karanja.
Thank you, Chair. The Deputy Head of Public Service and the Coordinator of the Multi-Agency Enforcement Team against Counterfeit and Illicit, Mr. Wanyama Musiambo. The Chair, Departmental Committee on Industrialization, Trade and Cooperative, Honorable Kaninikega. The Chair of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, Madam Flora Mutahi. The Executive Director of Anti-Counterfeit Authority, Mr. Harake, the CEO of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Madam Phyllis Wakiaga, the Director of Trademark East Africa, Mr. Farah Ahmed, and all other members present. Allow me first of all to convey the apologies of our Cabinet Secretary, Madam Betty Maina. She had confirmed attendance to this meeting, and she's saying that she regrets giving a second apology in a matter of 7 days. Last week, she had confirmed to attend another meeting, but in the last minute, she could not make it. And the same thing happened. I believe this meeting and date was arranged more than 2 months ago. And in her diary, she knew that on 10th of June, she'll be attending a function of Kenya Anti-Counterfeit Authority. However, as we all know, these are extraordinary times, and she was requested to attend another meeting, which she could not delegate. And therefore, with a very heavy heart, she requested me to come here and represent her. Secondly, I wish to congratulate Kenya Anti-Counterfeit Authority on your celebration of your 10th birthday. I know that had it not been the times we are living in, we would have attended a very big party. And I know as soon as the restrictions on movement and gatherings are lifted, the budget, I know, Madam Chair, is still there. And since we came to be with you today, on when there is a virtual birthday, you invite us for the real birthday, and we shall all attend. So congratulations on your 10th anniversary. Again, I would wish you to join all other Kenyans to be with you to celebrate this day, World Anti-Counterfeit Day, which we all know that it is a day we look at the challenges and the dangers posed by counterfeiting goods. And I know when Dr. Akuten was taking us, the figures, I can tell you, they are shocking. Only to realize that what the government lost in terms of revenue is several times bigger than in the ministry, the annual budget of the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development. Further, it means what was lost can learn the budget of our ministry and several other ministries. So this is a real menace. And then I also looked at the volume. Actually, it is almost bigger, if not bigger than the real, the value is bigger than the one of the actual manufacturers. And the growth, again, is even higher than the growth of our manufacturing sector. Therefore, it is something we need to tame at this early stage. Honorable Kanini Kega, don't feel embarrassed about your county. Your county is number 3. My home county of Nakuru, at least it had beaten you, it was number 2. But of course, since majority of the people are here from Nairobi, they took the prize. There's nothing to be proud about. But I know, since we are all here, that is something we'll work and reverse. Those are not gains. It is something we need to work and stop at the earliest opportunity. You also mentioned about counterfeiters killing our motto of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. And it is a high time you people, all of us go out and tell people that if you buy counterfeit, you are building counterfeit. So if you buy counterfeit, you are killing Kenya. So we must move forward, come out clearly and speak in one loud voice and tell people that this is a menace which is going not only to kill our people, but also our economy and our country. Because any time it can supersede, the contribution can supersede our economy. Where will be our security if the counterfeiters and these people who deal with illicit trade become stronger than they are? And you can see the rate at which they are growing. Having said that, you will allow me now to do what I was sent to do. What I said, that was mine, and that is not part of my duties. This is what I was told to come and say. I am happy to join you this morning as we launch this report of the first National Baseline Survey on the extent of counterfeit and other forms of illicit trade in Kenya. Before making my speech, allow me to thank United Kingdom Department for International Development through Trademark East Africa for providing the technical and financial resources to accomplish this task. I also thank other stakeholders from the private sector, like the intellectual property right owners represented here by Kenya Association of Manufacturers and the Consumer Organization for your support during the data collection for this survey. Appreciation to the multi-agency enforcement team led by the coordinator, Wanyama Musiembo, for the great leadership since your appointment by His Excellency, President Uhuru Kenyatta. We also acknowledge the State Department of Trade for leadership in the coordination for anti-illicit, the multi-agency public outreach and development of the National Action Plan to combat illicit trade through Anti-Counterfeit Authority. You have elevated the fight against illicit trade to great levels never seen before, and we congratulate you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, the problem of illicit trade is a global problem, known for crowding out billions in legitimate economic activity and facilitating an underground economy that deprives government of the revenue and vital public services, forces higher burdens on taxpayers, and dislocates hundreds of thousands of legitimate jobs and expose consumers to dangerous and ineffective products. On this, we have noted clearly the number of jobs which have been lost and what we lost, the government lost in revenue to the counterfeiters. The problem is even worse in the least developed and developing countries like Kenya, that even during COVID-19 pandemic, thanks to the outstanding effort of our law enforcement agencies, dangerous and counterfeit COVID-19 related consumer goods worth 13 million were seized, including face masks, testing kits, and sanitizers. This tells you that these people, in the appetite to make money, have no limit. They'll go to any extent, even exposing or killing our people to achieve the desired profit. Ladies and gentlemen, from a historical perspective, illicit goods in Kenya is partially attributed to Kenya trade liberalization in 80s and 90s. While a lot was gained by liberalization, like expansion of trade, especially in the horticulture and apparel sector, the dark side has been emerging of illicit trade. We cannot blame history. The trade and development landscape today is very different from the one which was there when policymakers back in 1980s and 1990s when the policies back in 1980s and 1990s were being developed. It is for this reason that His Excellency, the President, and the whole government considers illicit trade as a key impediment towards realization of the Big Four agenda as well as Vision 2030. Going by the highlights we have seen today in illicit trade, going by the highlights of today, we have seen how illicit trade affect our manufacturers and investors through lost market shares and employment opportunities for our people. The health and safety and other environmental hazard brought about by illicit traded products, together with reduced productivity as a result of fake agricultural inputs and industrial raw materials, is a public concern issue that must be addressed. Small, medium, and large manufacturing firms are all suffering. Our Juakari artisans and startup business are slowly laying off employees because their market share have been taken over by illicit trade. I think the demonstration by Dr. Acton was very, very clear on how the illicit trade is taking place, or the mainstream trade, and therefore people are being laid off. And we saw a figure of about 4,000 who were laid off in the year 2018 arising from illicit trade. This is why the findings in this survey are very important to us, for us to work with data in evidence-based policy intervention in the fight against illicit trade. While we appreciate the efforts made by various government agencies, there is no time to rest. We must push forward and implement some quick fixes as outlined in this report. Moving forward, we must pay particular attention to the need for better coordination across government agencies and across borders to make sure that enforcement strategies have maximum impact. And I believe that is what Honorable Kanini Keng and Mr. Wanyama Musiabo have addressed about relation between the governments and also different agencies enforcing that. We must speedily and efficiently share real-time intelligence in order to have an effective intelligence-led enforcement that can disrupt illicit trade. We also need to initiate immediately, through public participation, the necessary and rigorous institutional reforms to have illicit trade laws and efficient institutions to make it more punitive and costly for offenders to engage in illicit trade. Our ministry will look at the proposal to introduce a manufacturing enterprise registration regime. We will co-opt private sector, especially the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and the Council of Governors in development and rollout of the enterprise registration regime for our manufacturers. This is county government have a big role to play and should issue single licenses to manufacturing enterprises that do clean business and not to the illicit perpetrators. And that is the point we say that the county government should not just concentrate on issuance of license. They must also play a role in ensuring that those that have license are dealing with genuine product, not counterfeit. Finally, I am delighted to note that the long wait for getting that data is finally over. But at the same time, we need to keep our eyes open to those areas of the recommendations where progress is lacking and act on it. I applaud the Anti-Counterfeit Authority and the agencies involved, especially on the observatory that will enable real-time sharing of information on illicit trade. I urge all to remain committed to it, and it will enable us track and prioritize strategy on combating various forms of illicit trade. Our actions must speak louder than our words. We must work collaboratively for a better tomorrow. There is no societal problem that can be resolved by any one government agency working alone. Through our unity of effort and collective strength, we can work more effectively to combat the crime of illicit trade. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you. Ma'am, you wanted to say something? All right. Thank you very much, our chief guest. Something that might take home from your speech, buying counterfeits, you are building counterfeits. Buy Kenya, build Kenya. We are losing 4,000 jobs every year. 40% of the market share lost by Kenyans. This is huge. And the agencies present here, it is important to act. Now that I'm about to leave this podium and invite my co-MC, my name was Frederick, and probably you'll be wondering, kwani huyu jamaa anafanana namna gani? This would be my face. So if we meet again, please say hi. Asanteni sana, and God bless you.
Thank you, Frederick. And now comes the moment when we get to see what is inside that survey report. Bona chief guest and the other guests, allow us to very quickly project a very short clip just before we go down to unveil what we have for us today in the report. So the media team, please.
We are fighting illicit. It can be in any form. It can be uncustomed. It can be substandard. It can be called counterfeit. It can be called contraband. Name it. But we are fighting what is illegal, what is unwanted, what is harmful to our economy and to our health.
Illicit trade has been an impediment to business growth and consumer well-being in Kenya. The country has been confronted with a heightened level of illicit trade, but perpetrated by unscrupulous individuals and organized networks. Counterfeiting, tax evasion, smuggling, substandard goods and other forms of illicit trade are costing the country billions of shillings.
You can see the original how it looks.
Legitimate businesses are being undermined, some ending up in closure, and consumers are exposed to unsafe products. Illicit trade threatens the economy and the realization of a number of countries' development goals and prosperity of Kenyans.
You know very well you cannot compete in terms of market with the counterfeiters because they have not invested one in intellectual property. Their goods are substandard. They have not paid tax. Therefore, it is very easy for them to edge out genuine business persons. Secondly, the government loses tax revenue. In 2008, we lost USD 500 million.
We are aware that one of the biggest threats towards realizing this Big Four agenda and the long-term development blueprint of Kenya, the Vision 2030, is actually counterfeiting.
Every year, Kenya loses over 500 billion Kenya shillings in revenue due to the flooding of counterfeits and other forms of illicit goods in the market. These infiltrate right to the consumer door through the local shops. No wonder it attracted the attention of His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, thus his directive to destroy upon seizure all counterfeits and other illicit goods. The multifaceted nature of counterfeiting and other forms of illicit trade prompted a similarly multidisciplinary strategy to negate. The multi-agency approach in fighting illicit trade is now tested and proven. This calls for pooling of resources in enhancing the fight against illicit trade, especially trade in counterfeit goods.
The multi-agency guest of honor gives us the impetus to move faster. It brings all of us together. And it enables us to make very quick decisions in terms of seizures, even in terms of litigation. When we have to take people to court, that is the path we go.
The Anti-Counterfeit Authority, now 10 years since inception, continues to advance the national agenda by enforcing intellectual property rights, thus facilitating a conducive commercial culture for innovations and growth in trade. Through the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, the State Department for Trade (SDT) sought a harmonized approach to the multi-agency initiative and coordinated the development of National Action Plan to combat illicit trade in Kenya. This was in pursuance of government's commitment to enable a favorable business and investment environment. The action plan unites government institutions and private sector efforts to counter illicit trade as a strategic priority in realizing Vision 2030 aspirations as well as the Big Four agenda. In pursuit of legit businesses, counterfeit and illicit goods worth billions of shillings have been seized, prosecuted, and incinerated, most recent being 27 million Kenya shillings worth of assorted goods incinerated by ACA on 3rd June the year 2020.
To date, we have actually seized counterfeit goods to the tune of 3 billion shillings. We've prosecuted over 360 cases in court, and we have other goods worth 100 billion ready for destruction in Mombasa and 10 billion across the country.
Remember the banning of goods worth 1.7 billion shillings by the president? Some seized goods remain in government custody, awaiting specialized destruction due to environmental or health safety risks. The government, however, remains relentless in waging war on illicit trade.
Wewe ukilete, tutaimaliza. Tutaiponda-ponda vile mumeona.
As the world commemorates the World Anti-Counterfeit Day, this great day of Wednesday, 10th of June the year 2020 in Kenya, it is a historical moment as we launch the first ever in the country and in Africa, the National Baseline Survey on Counterfeiting and Other Forms of Illicit Trade, thanks to Trademark East Africa, TIMEA. The survey is a milestone in the implementation of National Action Plan to combat illicit trade in Kenya, launched by a power team led by the chair of the Parliamentary Trade Committee, Mr. Kanini Kega, the Deputy Head of Public Service, the PS, State Department for Trade, trade during the 2019 commemoration of the World Anti-Counterfeit Day. According to findings, 64% of Kenyans are aware of the existence of various forms of illicit trade in Kenya. However, majority of Kenyans do not know the harmful effects of counterfeits and illicit trade. According to the survey, most purchased form of illicit products were counterfeits, followed by substandard and pirated goods. The survey recommends a revamped multi-agency anti-illicit trade awareness programs that include counties to enhance knowledge base for consumers' recognition of illicit products. A major output of the survey is an observatory that enables live data feed, view and size computation of the various forms of illicit trade.
We will not allow an opportunity for counterfeiter, whether the goods meet the standard or not, to be allowed into our market.
Corruption ni janga, lazima tutaendelea kupigana nalo bila uoga.
Counterfeiting and illicit trade remain a menace to be overcome, and the survey we launched today provides strategy recommendations towards this. Our rallying call to all: let us work together to make our country free of illicit trade, enable legitimate trade to thrive, and ultimately the prosperity of all Kenyans. You and I have a responsibility. Let us say no to illicit trade.
Indeed, for our country, we are here. We launch the baseline survey today, and as the collaborating partners, as we launch, it is also a commitment that we shall put the recommendations therein. We shall be able to strategize and do what is required. And without much ado, I want to invite Madam Chair to lead the team of ACA, the others who have participated in the survey, KRA, KEBS. You will please follow Madam Chair, ACA Executive Director. And we have weights and measures here. I don't know which hat he will be wearing, whether it's weights and measures or PS, but please, that team, I will request you, and of course, our sponsor, Timea, please go down. The dummy is right on our right side. You see it there. And Madam Chair will lead that team and bring the dummy of the baseline survey to the chief guest, Bwana CAS, Honorable Kanini Kega, and the Deputy Head of Public Service, Mr. Musiambo, please, and Madam Phyllis. Today you get to be on that side because you're in the private sector. But you can also choose to be on this side because you are one of us. So I don't know which one you follow, but please let's all go down there. One team led by the chair will bring, and Bwana CAS just in front of the banner, the dummy will be brought there, so that we can also take a photo. You can leave your things, we'll hand them in, we'll take care and hand them over. Timea, please, let's follow Madam Chair. You are part of this and we really, really appreciate. Let's appreciate them as they come down. We appreciate the team once again. Those who are sleeping, this is the time to wake up if you didn't wake up during the clip. But I'm sure nobody slept because the speakers have been very engaging. So Madam Chair and the rest of the team, CAS, Honorable Kanini, please wait here next to the big banner. Please wait next to the big banner. Madam Chair, the ED, Timea, KRA, please be on the chair's team, and also KEBS, please be on that team. So you will carry that banner. Of course, we also be careful to maintain social distance. And yes, let's carry that dummy, and it has so much inside it. Let's appreciate the Madam Chair-led team. And yes, we hand it over to our chief guest, Bwana CAS, There is so much therein, and then we get to take a group photo. Please be sure not to be behind the dummy. We need to see your face. We need to see your face. Let's balance the photo a little bit. Yes, thank you. And away with illicit trade, because we have very good recommendations therein, and we shall continue to implement the recommendations, and we continue to monitor and evaluate our strategies as we go along to ensure that we are doing the right thing and that we are making a difference. Once again, let's put our hands together. Thank you so much. Let's put our hands together for the team. And I believe, okay, I thought it would go higher than that, but I think that's good enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And I think the ones who are sitting, this is the time you get to stand and appreciate the work of this great team here. Thank you, and as you put your hands together, remember you're also committing yourself. Let us be the ambassadors of the anti-illicit trade in our country. Thank you. The media will give you time to interview the team down there, and if chief guest and there are other distinguished guests you don't mind, we can have our closing word of prayer, and then we will leave at our own time. Ruto, I don't know how far you are. Very, very close. For prayers, it can never be too far. Thank you, Ruto. And thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, chief guest, and all the distinguished guests with us. Thank you for sparing the time and spending the entire morning with us. Thank you for those who are here participating physically, and even those online. We really, really appreciate you. As we pray, if you have not registered online, please do so. And if you're not able to, then make sure you put down your name as you step out. And we do have a cup of tea that Ruto will also pray for. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Thank you. Let's believe and pray. Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we thank you. We worship your name, dear Father, because of this afternoon you have given us. My dear God, you have been so gracious to us. You have enabled us, my dear Father, to go through the discussions on this report. Father, we pray that as we go into implementation of this, you are going to give us the knowledge, the wisdom, the guidance, even the resources, my dear Father, to implement this report. We pray that, my dear Father, it shall be impactful, my dear Father, to our economy and even to Kenyans at large and every other person, my dear God. May you give us strength, may you guide us and lead us, Jehovah. As we disperse from this place, we pray that you're going to be with us, you're going to protect us and care for us, my dear God. As we go our ways, may you protect us, my dear Father. Our guests, we thank you for bringing them. May you bless them wherever they are going, wherever they will be, my dear Father. We pray that you are going to bless them and be with us all. Even the cup of tea before us, we receive it, Lord, with thanksgiving in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, thank you, thank you again. Thank you, members of the Fourth Estate. Thank you. May you be our ambassadors also. God bless you all, and go well.